Uh, Thank you for sticking around for the afternoon on second day. I hope that all the panels have been enjoyable. My name is Karina Barriga. I am not on the screen today. I'm filling in for Cecilia, who had to leave a little bit earlier today. But I'm very excited to join you today on this talent development panel. Exporting assets, how to develop young talent to generate revenue and grow sustainably. A very topic, so I think that we'll have a very interesting conversation this afternoon. We have great panelists joining us today. Of course, we are at the home of Total Football, so we have Ajax represented, one of the best academies in the world. We have Benfica as well, one of the most profitable and top academies in Europe and the world. And we have the Royal Belgium Football Association, World Cup semifinalists in Russia in 2018, and an organization with a traditional structure to approach and building elite pathways for their players. So a very exciting panel. And because I think we're definitely gonna run out of time, I'm gonna go directly into the questions, and then the panelists can introduce themselves as they respond. Cornet, I wanted to start with you today because we are on your home stadium, so we'll give you that advantage.
I know these people are also Ajax fans, so welcome to your club. Yeah.
Excellent. So, what is it about the Ajax model that makes your young players so marketable throughout time? You know, it's been decades since I've heard about the skills, about the just that essence, a DNA of the Dutch player that remains so highly regarded in the world of football. So is it the philosophy that you ingrained in them? Is it the playing opportunities that they're given here in the Dutch league? What makes them so relevant?
The players, you mean, eh? Why is the play? Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, they play for the best club in the world, and everyone wants to have a player from now. I think Ajax has been traditionally, yes, you're right, it's a very old and traditional club. And one of the traditions is the good enough is old enough saying. So early debuts, many players that make history at an early age, and we go earlier and earlier. I think that's one of the big advantages for players coming from our academy, that coaches are willing to give chances, and if they are good enough, they are old enough. Age is just a number, not in my case. I know that, but I think that's one of the things that stands out at Ajax, I would say. Yeah. Well, let's start there.
Okay. No, thank you. We have here Lorenzo Meneses. You're head of international. You're an international business executive at Benfica. So Benfica, you might all know this stat, but over the last 10 years, you're the most profitable academy from a club in terms of selling players that have spent at least 3 years in your academy. So you're generating that type of income for your club. So same question for you, really. What makes your model? What is it about the Benfica model and the Benfica players that are so attractive in the market? Is it the Benfica Lab? You know, your approach to performance and sports science. Is it your international scouting network? Your 6 talent development centers around the world. What is driving that success?
Well, this is a very complex.
I had the same feeling. Yeah.
Well,
your questions are very directive. You're already telling us what to say, more or less. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, let's start from the beginning and start to count a little bit the story of Benfica, and I believe that our audience will understand why we are the most profitable at the moment, and I believe that after that conversation, everybody will understand a bit better the process. But starting from the beginning, Benfica is a club with 120 years today. Is a club not just with football. We started with football, but today we have 30 sports, Olympic project, the foundation, and Benfica TV, 200 houses of Benfica spread in Portugal, in the world. A lot of schools and technical projects all over the world also. And is a big club. We have more than 50% of fans of football in Portugal. We used to say 60% of the fans of football are Benfiquistas in Portugal, because it's a big world, not just in Portugal, but in other places. We are considered one of the historical clubs. We won the first Champions League, like Ajax, like other teams that are today are not on the level, on the first European level, but we are obviously one of the historical ones. And since 20 years ago, we started this academy in 2006, a bit less than 20 years, Benfica campus, and we start a process to develop talent from our academy. And for a club like Benfica, it's super important to have young talent formed since 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, all the way to the professional level. It's different when the kid like Bernardo Silva that start to play in our schools, and then become on the youth process and become player from Benfica, and one day went to City and Monaco, and City, and probably one day return to Benfica. We are creating, this is just a small story, like our president Rui Costa started also with 7 years old and became today president. And these are the heroes that we create, and the Benfica is made for these personalities, for trophies, for winnings, but also for a strong culture. And this explain a little bit a bit the process and what we are doing in education, in formation of top players, and creating a club of this dimension. But we go on the next questions.
No, it's an incredibly successful club in the Portugal context, but of course very historical in Europe as well, and we keep seeing the great Portuguese talent in every league. You know, I don't think any fan of football has seen a lot of matches where at least one Portuguese player is not involved. So I think that says a lot, you know, about the environment that you're developing. Kevin, so you're the only representative on the panel from a national association. Today you're head of emerging talent at the Royal Belgium Football Association, but before that you spent more than a decade working at the club level for Anderlecht. So I think this is something that I have thought about a lot over the past few years. So when you look at creating pathways to develop talent, how does the work or the priorities change when you are at the club or when you are, you know, at the federation working for youth national teams, for senior national teams? Because, of course, us working in talent development, at the heart, we have the development of the player as our top priority. But if you are a club, you know, looking at the value of the player, looking at winning trophies, versus if you're a national team, looking at, you know, how to build that best, you know, Belgium squad. How do your priorities change? What do you look at first?
Again, very good question, very difficult one. Like the colleagues mentioned of Ajax and Benfica, before I worked nearly even 2 decades, 17 years for RC Anderlecht. So I think also a very big youth developer in Belgium in a smaller league, but we met a lot in youth competitions. I'm now working for nearly 4 months for the Belgian FA as the head of talent. Total different world. A federation is a non-private company, so the profit aim is not the biggest aim. I would say the biggest aim of the federation is to promote football and to organize it for as many players possible. So I would say my context, my field of working became totally different. Nearly during 17 years, I was in the middle of, and I'm afraid to express it like that, but unfortunately it is like that. I was in the middle of the war on talent, and war is today a very, very harsh word, and I don't like to use it, but sometimes it's also very unfair. It's reasonable because we all work with kids, and especially sometimes very young age. As you all know, the Netherlands is a quite small country, but Belgium is even smaller.
Even smaller? Yeah.
Even smaller, not as a football country, Cornet, but
uh,
so purely geographically, it's a very small country. So it means that from Brussels, within 1.5 hour drive, you could nearly go for every place in the country. So I think that the biggest opportunity is to organize top competitions, youth competitions, as from 9 years old. It's a big advantage. On the other hand, the disadvantage is that everybody tries to steal talent from each other. There's a fierce war on the most promising kids. And I think now that I'm on the other side, not spending my Sundays at the club convincing talents from other clubs, but now spending my Sundays a little bit more calm sometimes, I think we should also tackle it more in a pedagogical way. That, for example, the number of youth transfers within elite competitions is limited, is capped, because I hear a lot of times the saying player development, but how can you develop a player if every year you do 60 transfers? So it's like in school, imagine kids changing schools every year. I think it's very difficult to develop in a good way. So I think the first ingredient to do top-notch player development like the colleagues do of Benfica and Ajax is to search for the talents, and then afterwards, when you find them, to develop them, but to be rational and to be calm and to take the time to develop them.
No, I agree, definitely. That is a very interesting perspective. And I think that ties into an interesting question for you all. So when is a player ready to make that move? So you have previously worked in an academy, you do work in talent development at the club level. You of course identify the talent. You train them in your academies. They have playing opportunities. When are they ready to make the jump to a bigger club, and when is it too soon? How do you make that judgment call?
Can I ask a question also, Lorenzo? As of also the title of this, what we're doing now, I don't feel, my club at least, but I wonder what it is for Benfica. It is not we are developing players as a business model. So I don't believe there's any club, or there should be a club that is developing players for the money side of it. Hopefully we're all in this game of football development because we want young talents to strive and to be the best they can be, and it comes with consequences, like Kevin said, that we have to be really considerate of. But we are developing children in the hope to one day win the Champions League with our first team. It is not we are developing players, okay, let's put a number on this, let's put it in an Excel file and see how much he's worth in 2 years so we can sell him. It is for us to be, and then there is a market there is a big thing happening in the world, and players are sometimes worth a lot of money, but I don't think there's many, I'm not sure how you feel, but it's not a business model in itself. It is what comes at the end of the business model being, let's create players for our first team to be attractive to our supporters, to be attractive to TV audiences, and to have people coming to our stadium to see a great game of football. That's, I think, the business model in itself.
Yeah, can I? Obviously. In other hand, and we need a model of Benfica, Portuguese league. We are not on the Premier League or La Liga or Bundesliga, and we obviously need the revenue from the players. The transfers is very important revenue for we keep the balance well, and to compete, obviously. But we have to see this in a totally different way. This is education. You will educate hundreds or thousands of kids, and just 1 or 2% will achieve professional levels. And we must separate absolutely these topics. And during the process, you have to form top top persons, top personalities.
Yeah.
You mentioned yesterday, and we do exactly the same. We have 50 schools. Just for explain a little bit the model, we have 50 schools all over the country. This is a pay-to-play model. Then we have 6 CFTs, the central talent centers invested by Benfica, and then the Benfica campus. The best of the best first. The best comes from the schools for the centers and the centers for the campus. And this is, we say, more or less initiation from 6 to 13 years old on the schools, then about the 10 to 18 years old, 16 years old in the CFTs, and then the professional pathway to professional on the last phase. And all this process, we try to work with the players near the houses. It's very important that instead, old times, the young talent come from the north or from Algarve, from the south, have to do 400 kilometers or 500 kilometers to play in Lisbon. It's very hard for a kid with 10, 12 years old. 15 is okay, but before that, for sure you can explain this better than me. But it's very hard, and this is education. Also we don't manage the youth development, the Benfica campus with titles. We don't measure that absolutely. We just want that the Benfica campus produce at least 1 or 2 good players per season, prepared to be on our first team, to absolutely prepared to perform, or in 1 or 2 years to play on our first team, on our 11 in the match. Yeah, the goal is absolutely that one.
No, absolutely. I think the topic of education, the topic of that care that anyone involved in football owes the young players in the academies is should be at the heart of the conversation at all times. Yesterday we had a very interesting panel on player care. I think many of the audience members were probably there. A lot of interesting conversations on how you manage that at the first team level, but of course in the academy is also a very important topic. I believe that as you mentioned, Corne, or Lorenzo, many of the academy players probably will not play elite football long term. They will go on to do other things with their lives. But that educational component, that character development, is probably very determinant to both of them, right? To the ones that go on to pursue other pathways, and to the ones that end up playing for their national teams and in the top leagues of the world. So in your organizations, how do you manage that, that character development, that educational component? What are some of your priorities, some of your strategies to I guess, support the non-sporting side of the academy?
No, this is one of the most important points in Benfica campus. Benfica campus is more or less 25 minutes away from the stadium. It's in the south area, crossing the river of Lisbon. It's a very calm place. We don't have yet, but we have plans to have a school, international school, not just national, international. It's important all the kids speak English and from the beginning start to speak internationally. Yeah, we have some more or less half they are placed around Lisbon, and the rest comes from the other places that they need to have accommodation, and they also study with us. Is in the Portuguese system is very difficult to handle that, because the regular schools, the schedules and everything, they are not prepared. That means that we need to bring our kids and to form some classes just with players. Is one thing that we'd like to change in the future, to mix the kids with the regular students. Otherwise, they are like the tribe of football, always inside of football, always small stars, because these kids with 14, 15, 16 years old, they passed in the in the Benfica TV, they are already big stars because everybody think that the new Renato Sanches, the new João Felix, the new Bernardo, the new Ruben, because we noticed the process since they started like 10 years ago, and everybody now is looking who's the next generation one. And there's a lot of attention on these kids. They are already top players. I see this also in a good way. That means that they are prepared for the stress, for the media, and those that achieve this level today, they are super prepared to perform and to be good player in the 90 minutes, but also in the 22 and a half minutes of the days and the weeks and the year. Yeah, that means that we do a lot on that. We have specific people working, super professional, and most of that is a big responsibility because the parents leave the kids in Benfica, rely on Benfica, the education, and we have to do our best.
What is it like at Ajax?
Yeah, so we have our own school on the premises, and everything is very close here. Like Kevin said, we're too small. We can't go 20 minutes away because then we're out of the country into Belgium. But we have our own school here, and the system is very strict on everybody leaving Ajax if they have to leave with a school diploma. But I also believe what we just said is that the things that football brings with it, the planning, strategizing, being coachable, all of these qualities that you need in life anyway. First thing is we have a high percentage of succeeders in our academy, so that's the one thing. They make a career out of football, but still need to be good people and have an education. And I also need to emphasize that we're also struggling with the fact that because we have our own school, it makes it very hard to have players integrate into life, let's say, because they should also meet other kids, and maybe it would be good, we think, meet other kids in a top sport, maybe musical or dance or other sports environment. We are now building our new youth complex. It's going to be in the next few years. And the line of thinking now is that we need to integrate a school in the whole of the area, in the city area, so that our kids are going to go to school there. We also have to see the other way, that Ajax kids traveling, 12, 13 years old, traveling from the train station to the club, also have to deal with a lot of old men saying, hey, you play with Ajax, and then they have to be, it's like a 12-year-old kid, and now he has to talk like a 50-year-old guy, like he is in charge of the conversation. So we also have to understand, to be in the environment of what they are, it's also not making their life easy, and yeah, that takes a lot of attention from both sides. It's not, I don't think it's the kids making themselves superstars, it is the other people around it making them superstars. So maybe there's also some work, Kevin, with associations together, clubs together, understanding what's going through their systems, and we can all work together a little bit more on that. We also feel that challenge.
Definitely.
If I just may totally agree with the fact of mingling those young talents with, I would call them normal school kids, is a very, very good one, because let's be honest, I'm now more than 20 years in elite player development, and I especially call it elite player development because I can admit for a big audience that I was wrong many times, and I will be wrong in the future many times, and we will all be wrong. So putting an elite label on kids at a too young age is very, very delicate, because I always described the triangle school, football, family. That is a bit the world they are coping with. And sometimes, dependent on how talented they are, football dominates a bit, or sometimes in some periods, in exam periods, school needs to dominate a bit. Family, there is often too little time for family. So, and now also in my new position from a federation perspective, I dropped a little bomb in the federation asking is it even a good thing to already begin with national teams at the under 15 level? Because in Belgium you can sign your first contract at the age of 15. I think it's the same case in Holland. I don't know in Benfica.
16, but you start
16,
signing at
yeah.
15.
Yeah. So it would mean at the age of third year in secondary school, which is very difficult in Belgium, at the same age where they cope with puberty, at the same age they get to know agents, sponsors, contract deals. You put them in the national team, opening up their world, putting them into a whole new world visible for all kinds of foreign clubs, and everybody starts dreaming. Not always the kids, often also the parents and the agents that often call them friends or
That's not allowed to have agent when you're 15, is it?
It's not allowed, but I think I think it's the reality. So I wouldn't go to too soon calling guys this is elite and so on. Just keep them feet on the ground. Just mingle them with normal school kids. Sometimes being modest to, in your example, a guy of 50 years old playing for Ajax, and they need to cope with it. They need to stay modest. And I like the words you said in the beginning of your response, Corné. Let's first, all of us, federation clubs, turn them into good human beings and afterwards into brilliant football players.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that in terms of the role of the associations in Europe that are playing on making those decisions, you know, I think that it's very interesting how each organization has to look at their core values and their core priorities when they deal with the talent. But I'm curious, what does your day-to-day looks like now, Kevin, in the association? You mentioned that in terms of the main role of the organization, providing grassroots opportunities, you know, giving the people access to football. So is that a bit of a separate department that does that, or are you, as head of, you know, talent, also involved? So talk to us a little bit about how your role has changed.
Again, difficult question, and I hope my colleagues are not listening, but it was a big shift for me. You need to know that the role of a federation in the development of players is quite limited in time. We only borrow them. I'm quite happy that I don't need to recruit them and that I'm negotiating. So we just borrow them for the clubs, but I think we only spent maybe between 5 and 8% of the whole season with them. So our impact towards the players is very, very limited. So my role is twofold. First of all, I need, together with a team of scouts, try to find in Belgium the biggest promising talents, and then there's always the big question, what is talent? Is it the guys that are early performers and that are very big and quick and tall and that can score goals and so you win international games? Or are it sometimes the little guys, the late mature players that have a fantastic talent for the future? So it's a very difficult balance to find. So that's the operational part. Secondly, there's in a federation a big strategical part. I'm very, very passionate about it, but it involves, unfortunately, a lot of politics. And as you know in Belgium, or as you might not know in Belgium, we are the smallest country, but we have 5 governments. Just to tell you, it's very...
How many official languages do you have?
We have Dutch, we have French, and 1% is even German.
So.
Aber ich spreche ein bisschen.
If I'm here, well, okay, I'm here well.
Yeah, you're blessed, and I think Corné also, because it's in one language that you need to communicate. So we have the northern part that is Flemish/Dutch, with a different grassroots football association. We have the southern part, which is French, with a different grassroots organization. Then we have the federation. We have the Pro League. So there's a lot of stakeholders, and often politics or even regulations are different. So I would say the most interesting part of my job will now be exploring how everything is done and trying to make people collaborate.
Even in the, you know, complex context of the government, the regulations, you have done a lot of good work in the past few years. So it's been, yeah, I believe that the national teams you've had over the past few years show that, you know, there's something that's been done right in terms of identifying and then, you know, training, maybe by the clubs where you were previously part of, but also the role of the
Anderlecht
association.
won the Future Cup too many times. We're also a little bit, it's a big tournament here in Amsterdam. His club won it too many times. Also not so nice, Kevin.
They haven't won it since I left Cornet, so just joking.
Lorenzo and Cornet, we talked a lot about the players, but I want to talk a little bit about coaches. So, of course, coaches are the ones that spend most of the time with their players. And I know that, Lorenzo, you at Benfica have international projects in which some Benfica coaches go abroad and they teach the players and they teach other coaches about your philosophy, so your way of understanding football. So yeah, what is the ideal coach for an academy at Benfica? What is the ideal coach for an academy at Ajax? The traits that you look in them.
Am I allowed? Because I would like to refer also to a conversation we had yesterday. Is that maybe I should have mentioned earlier, but we have over 50 partner clubs in the Netherlands. So the centers that you mentioned, our partner clubs are very, very important to us. We've also created an international network that we really want to expand on the exchange of knowledge. And that is so important to us because the local knowledge, even in the city of Amsterdam, our partner clubs understand their specific areas much better than we could from our perspective. So for us, it's very important to have a partner in Brazil that understands local market and can help us to educate players while we are trying to educate coaches. And maybe educate is not even the right word. We are trying to exchange knowledge in which we do feel we are one of the best youth academies in the world. We probably have the same sheet, but in our presentation, they put themselves on number one. We put ourselves on number one, but we are one of the best youth academies in the world. And we share this information with our partners locally and internationally because we believe this local knowledge should be developed and we must try to get the best of both worlds. So coach education is at the core of what we do because we feel that reaching out to players is one thing, but it's more maybe the scouting department needs to understand local markets. For us and my department, it's very important to educate coaches that can educate coaches in a very local circumstance. So we work with, I'm looking at Felipe now, we work with Atlético Paranaense in Brazil. We don't go to Brazil and tell them how it's done. The vice world champion telling the 5 or 6 time world champion how to do it. That's not, that's yeah, twice, yeah. That's not how it should be done. We are getting there, understanding that we have a lot of information that could be important to the development of players in Brazil, and then also for our scouting department. But it is an exchange of knowledge in which coaches play a vital role. So in my team, the biggest number of staff is committed to how do we the content of what we do in our youth academy on all the different topics that we do, like mental or social or young kids or older kids, all that information, how do we translate it into information that's valuable for our partners so that we can help to educate each other on how to develop top talent in the world. So the coaching is like sort of the umbrella that it falls under: club, coach, player.
Yeah, I could answer exactly with the same words. Bringing a bit more from the Portuguese perspective and Benfica perspective, we became a country of coaches. Probably was Mourinho starting this trend. I have a course of coaches. Most of the people that work with us, international department, they was coaches during some time. Some they still after the work they will lead some team, and we have a very good base to choose super, and the Portuguese Federation is doing an amazing job on that, forming UEFA Cs, UEFA Bs, and wherever. And after that, we have courses of sports leaders with a lot of education side of coaches. That means that not just coaches, that sports directors, team managers. It's very important to have a complete staff, not just of course Benfica have a very huge structure, but all over the world in our projects in Brazil we also have a good partner in Brazil, in Minas Gerais, or in other places like America or Egypt or Dubai. It's necessary to bring, in some cases, not just the coaches, but also other levels of training. But concentrating the coaches obviously is the most important point. And hopefully in Portugal we have a very good base. In these 50 schools we have about 500 coaches. In the centers some more. In Benfica campus probably we have a base of 700 to 800 Benfica coaches working all year in our methodology, and we use this kind of experience and this kind of experienced coaches on the international programs.
Great. Yeah, of course. I think you both highlight the quality that is needed for the coaching, and you mentioned as well the number of coaches in each of your academies. So recently, I think a couple of seasons ago, my team at FIFA they did an overview on talent development, and one of the indicators of top performing academies in terms of providing a better pathway for players was the player coach ratio, and it came out that in the top academies it was about 11 players per coach, which of course in a grassroots setup or in countries where there's less licensed coaches it's not possible, but at the very elite, very top level, yeah, it seems like one squad, one coach.
There's a win-win also. We are also organizing coach education, and the association is doing that. Of course, that's their job, but we are also organizing, and it's also a great way for us to get to know new coaches. Can I ask one more thing on what you said? These core values that you mentioned just a few minutes ago. I think that's also a big one. So the clubs that we work with, locally or internationally, a very strong leadership, very strong will on who they want to be, what they stand for. We also strive with all our education programs to start with mission, vision, core values. What is it that you want to be? Because then we might be able to help you, or we might have to say we cannot help you because this is out of our reach. You're in a different perspective. Just an example, I just mentioned the Brazilian partner, so I can move on that. They have a logo with 4 stripes. It's the 4 winds that together make the hurricane. So it's 4 directions of wind, innovation. So their core values are in the logo, and it's the same for many of the other clubs. And I think that's from a strong perspective of leadership. Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? I think that's also a big future for football, that we don't swift too much in our where we want to be.
Absolutely.
We bring methodology, and I think it's more or less the same way. We bring the methodology. With more than methodology, I think that we process. We process organization. These organizations they need, but in terms of coaches, it's necessary to have, and they need to adapt. We bring this methodology and organization, but it's very, very important to adapt. It's different to train in Japan or in China or in South Africa or in Brazil. It's super, or in America, and you really need to adapt and bring what you can bring, but adapt at the circumstances, which is super different.
Of course, yeah. And now thinking about each of the countries represented on this panel and about coaches, I'm thinking a few seasons ago I didn't know many Belgium coaches. Now, of course, Vincent Company at Bayern Munich has an interesting appointment. Kevin, what is it about the Belge style of coaching? I was at a panel yesterday as well here, and hearing some differences between the Dutch approach and the Belgium approach. So anything
I
on
think
that?
it's probably a bit cultural. We just did the signing of company because we knew you were going to ask this question, but we don't have a lot of famous international Belgian coaches. I don't know why, because we have a lot of talent, maybe because commercially these colleagues are a little bit better than the Belgian ones. But I think we could spend hours and weeks talking about methodology and philosophy and so on. I think in football, which is a very, very emotional world, the first touch point of a player is always the coach. And if we look at other sports, a lot of the times the coach is seen as a friend. You do athletics, you go and do a sprint, you come back or you walk back and you talk to the coach, how did I do, you get feedback and so on. In a football team, it is difficult to talk to the coach after a training session because the rest of the team will look at you in a bizarre way. So there is still some room for improvement to come a little bit more closer towards the athlete and also to involve the athlete in the development process. I think it's a culture aspect, and I think everywhere in the world, or at least in many countries, coaching education and FIFA, UEFA are doing a fantastic job. There's a lot of knowledge, but as often the difference is made in the personality. Be there as a friend, create a safe environment. It's not so easy in 2024, but I think it's important to feel safe, to feel loved, and then you can be the best version of yourself. So we all, in every role, whether it's a coach or a scout or a technical director, need to be aware of that and create that safe environment.
No, I think those are great great remark to end the panel on. I think it's definitely a priority that we also should keep in mind through our work in football. I think we have a time for maybe one question from the audience. So I don't know if anyone has any burning questions for Corné, Lorenzo, or Kevin. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Make sure.
Hi, I'm Julie from, I work with the Turkish Football Coaches Association. So I'm very, very curious because in every country we have different challenges, and I think the opportunities are definitely now with technology, and also I see sometimes disconnecting with technology, and also the like you said before, Kevin, right, Kevin? Yeah. What you said, like in the federations or in these governmental organizations, we have these challenges that we try to implement technology. So for me, I know Ajax has represented it very well, and they want to be very innovative, and I think that's the case why you're also so successful. So besides structures, I really would love to know, how do you challenge this when to increase sport performance with talents, etc., and you're challenging, for example, very conservative old structures, and federations? Like, that's really my main question, to be honest. Yeah.
Good one, difficult one. I think with the current generation of young players that grew up with a cell phone basically being a part of their body, because they even when they go to the toilet, they don't leave it. Whether you consider it a handicap and you try to be annoyed by it, whether you see it as an opportunity and you include it in learning, I think technology could be an accelerator for the learning process, because they are used learning on screens, and actually the current generation is also far more than us before looking up information in order to find solutions. So if we could create technological environments where they feel a part of their personal development process, where probably there's a bit of sauce regarding gamification because they like scores, they like levels, they like level up, and so on. I think it's a part of the development, but let's not forget that the more time you spend on those kind of machines, the less time you spend on whether the training ground, whether developing personal skills. So it should be a good mix, but often I talked to Chris van Puivel, the Belgian technical director a few years ago, who was at that time, I had dinner with him in China, and he was talking to me, Kevin, I'm getting very, very tired because I'm always flying to all provinces in China, spreading the word on how we want them to develop, and we were arguing about or discussing about try to accelerate it through technology, because if you film a few good exercises, few challenges for kids, you spread it throughout all kinds of platforms, it will stimulate them. And in theory, every time a kid hits a ball in every country, you are developing the kid, whether it is with top-notch material or whether it is just at home in the living room. So technology is a part of it, but like everything in life, it's balance.
I can add our international model to develop players in other places, not just in Portugal. Obviously, the technology and all the systems is super important. With our partners, we try to bring all possible. But obviously, the most important is the coach, is the human. Still, the human. Our model is very based on our human knowledge. Use the tools, and we try to bring, especially for projects with capacity to develop players for the national teams. In some places, we are working with this goal in mind. Try to really to promote the players and to work for players to the professional levels. And on this kind of project, it's super important to bring all the stuff, all the technology that we have. But it's always balanced. In many other places, we don't use nothing special about technology. It's just human knowledge and organization process. There's many places in Africa or in South America. It's much more process, much more organization than technology nowadays. Still.
Thank you so much. I think that we're done for today. But it's been a very interesting conversation, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.